Officially, the SAT no longer has vocabulary-specific questions, but in reality, what they've replaced them with are words and context questions. And these questions are extremely important to be able to use logic on to deduce the correct answer, so you don't have to memorize hundreds and hundreds of vocabulary words that you might never use again. So here I'm going to show you a quick strategy for how you can get these questions done. So there are multiple questions that you could be asked relating to words and context. And if you don't know, there are only a couple of questions, again, that the College Board can ask you in general in the English section, and these are the ones that relate to words and context. So here we have which choice completes the text with the most logical and precise word or phrase. Okay, and here we're focusing on words. All right. Now, sometimes they'll give you a couple words that really make sense, but again, there's going to be a main word. So here, for example, incongruities or deferences or preferences or independence, etc. Right? And then as used in the text, and this is just going to be some vocab word. What does that most nearly mean? Okay. So what they might give you here is a word that has, a bunch of different meanings, like date, let's say. You have the fruit, you have the calendar date, you might have a romantic date, etc. What does that most nearly mean? Then I'll give synonyms for the different meanings of that word. Now here's how you're going to solve one of those. The first thing we're going to do is skim the entire passage. And you want to skim the entire passage. You can get a general idea of the connotation of the passage. So what kind of tone are we striking here? Are we informational? Are we happy? Are we joyful? Are we gloomy, etc.? Then you're going to look at restatements. Now what's a restatement? Sometimes a College Board will make a statement. Let's call it Statement A. Alright. And Statement A has a blank. Alright. Now we're going to have Statement B. But Statement B does not have that blank. It is a restatement of Statement A, but without the blank. Okay? So you can find which word will correspond to this blank in Statement B and Statement A. Right? You can find out which word corresponds to that blank, and then you'll know the answer. Right? You just need to find a synonym for that word that corresponds to the blank in your answer choices. Alright, now you can always use context clues on our transition words from topic 5 to also help you figure that out. Now, the next thing you're going to do is you're going to eliminate some of the words. Remember, you may not know what all of the words mean, and that's okay. What you first want to do is you want to eliminate the ones that you know are wrong. Okay, that you know are wrong. Or, if that doesn't work, if you can't find an answer after that, then what you should do is eliminate ones that you think might be tonally incorrect. For example, if you want a positive word, something that has a prefix like on or dis or something like that, probably isn't as positive as you want it to be, so it's probably not the right answer. So let's take a look at this example question. The wide-ranging catalog of jazz trumpeter Miles Davis has garnered an array of opinions from jazz critics. Some argue that the obvious blank, Davis's early traditional bebop output and the highly experimental jazz rock fusion that would define the end of his career reflected a genuine change in the artist's musical preferences, while others contend that Davis's efforts across genres represented a shrewd response to changing commercial demands. So I emphasize the word changing here. Why? Because it appears twice, and because it seems like that's kind of forming our statement A, statement B here, right? So let's take a look. Let's test our answer choices now. Some argue that the obvious independence of early traditional bebop output in the highly experimental jazz rock fusion work that would define the end of his career reflected a genuine change. Well, independence of doesn't really make sense. This might be independent, but that doesn't really relate to this part here. Okay. Incongruities between. If you don't know this word, let's just say we skip it for now. Okay. What it means is differences. All right. Now, deference to. Some argue that the obvious deference to Davis's early traditional bebop and the highly experimental jazz rock fusion work that would define the end of his career reflected a genuine change. Well, deference to doesn't really make sense there. He's not deferring to anything, right? If anything, he's deferring to this because that's what he eventually switches to. Some argue that the obvious preferences for Davis's early traditional bebop and the highly experimental jazz rock fusion work that would define the end of his career reflected a genuine change. Well, preferences for doesn't really make sense either, especially because let's say if he had a preference for this, right, he wouldn't choose a switch, right? So the answer should be this one, just out of process of elimination here, right? But even if you didn't know this, see, we were able to figure that out. Now, incongruities, makes sense. Incongruities means a difference. It means a change, something like that. Some sort of difference, right, between two things. Here, we're comparing this and we're comparing this. Okay, and we have a genuine change, another change, right? So what we're trying to look for here is a word that involves some change. And that is how you solve a words and context problem.